No, look, Gab has summed it up perfectly. You jumped in, no need, but that's fine. So it was a bad day off the pitch for Manchester City
that where you were
today.
going?
That's where I was going.
I thought you were going to come to Shaq.
No, I think we've done enough. Let's talk about football, shall we, and what happened yesterday. Manchester City, of course, losing 1-0 against Tottenham Hotspur. Harry Kane's goal proving to be the difference between the two sides, meaning that Arsenal remain 5 points clear at the top of the table. Craig, you weren't on yesterday, so I want to start with you. Where do you want to start with this?
The financial thing. I prepped it all day. A surprise and not a surprise, is that a silly thing to say? Just always waiting for City to... Right, OK. A couple of weeks ago, Tottenham gave them a bloody nose and then City ran all over the top of them. So you think, right, they've learned a lesson, they're going to go to London and it's going to be different. But it wasn't. And I sat there looking at it from a player's perspective. I sat in the first 2 minutes screaming at the TV, and this was going to be a theme of the game. There wasn't 2 minutes on the clock. Erling Haaland made a great run right down the centre of the field, splitting the centre halves. And I think it was Bernardo Silva he got the wrong side of the Spurs midfield, and for some reason he turned back, or he went wide, and it was screaming on for this ball to go through the middle. And I thought, oh my God. And then for 90 minutes, you're looking at the runs and City's play and how slow it was and how they're trying to go through the middle most of the time. Yeah, they put some crosses in. They put more crosses in the second half, but they weren't very good. And by that point, Tottenham were really sitting deeper and had lots of bodies back. You know, Rico Lewis playing left back. Not that he's a bad player, he's a terrific young player, but stepping into the middle of the park, that's getting a little bit boring for me. And also, what the hell's happened to the best centre-half in the country? A year ago, Ruben Diaz.
Yeah.
So there are so many things. Kevin De Bruyne on the bench, of course. There are so many things with this City side that are just not functioning at the moment. But for me, one of the basics was, and you don't need any data analyst to tell you this, in the first half, get it wide, put some crosses in the box. You've got a big guy up there, he's making runs, he's getting in there. It was pedestrian at best by Manchester City.
Nathan, from a City perspective, what was the most disappointing thing that you saw yesterday?
Probably that sense of deja vu, to be honest. I think that's 5 times they've been to that stadium and not even scored a goal, 5 defeats as well. You know, it's sad, it's just in the back of your mind. Like, it felt like such a great opportunity, but the sense of inevitability when they play Spurs away. But in watching the game, I think what got to me was the fact that at times they felt very one-dimensional. I think for the way that Spurs would try and press on occasion, it's good that they're doing so, but you can break that press, you can play a ball into the striker, you can play a ball into the space in behind, because you've got one of the quickest strikers in the Premier League playing up there and physically can move people about as well. So I would have liked to have seen them be a bit more direct at times, but they do insist on playing the way that they do. And they're playing behind so little that I think to myself, well, it must be by design, because otherwise, surely that would be the thing to do. When someone has the strength that he does and the pace that he does, try and find a way to use it. But in the end, it wasn't to be. I personally don't think it was the worst game they've played all season or anything, but it felt more disappointing because the opportunity was there for them to catch up just that little bit to Arsenal. But in the end, as I say, Haaland's not had a shot in the game, he's not had a touch in the opposition's penalty box. And when that is the case for someone so prolific, it just goes to show that that level of creativity wasn't there, and maybe they played into the hands of the opposition a little bit.
And Nathan, what's up with Pep and De Bruyne?
Nothing, I don't think. I think there have been times, like having to watch City on a week-to-week basis, there are times where De Bruyne's maybe not played at his best, and Pep tries to mix things up a little bit, but De Bruyne is still one of his captains. He's probably going to play 90% of the games between now and the end of the season, and they just have so many options. And I think today, for the game the other day, the issue was, for him to try and play Alvarez, it means that somebody's going to be missing out like that. It was either going to be Bernardo Silva and Gundogan, usually one of the two, but then it was Gundogan and Kevin De Bruyne as well. And I think the balance didn't quite work out, because in fairness to Spurs, from what I saw, there were times when Eric Dyer was really going out and pressing high in midfield instead of just following a striker. So in that moment, maybe you take that away from him by having a De Bruyne in there. So now he has to make a decision whether he goes to this one or to that one. But in the end, they didn't get the tactics right. But, you know, Kevin De Bruyne is very much trusted by Pep Guardiola. He's not in the doghouse or anything like that. And also with Ruben Diaz, for City, it's upsetting a few people because they want to see him playing, and I get that. But like Akanji and Nathan Ake have been 2 of City's best players all season. So as a consequence, you can see Pep is rewarding them by keeping them in the side. But it does feel strange to see players of that calibre on the bench.
Have you ever seen a guy who's scored as many goals as he has, Haaland, look as frustrated as he does in big games? Some of the big games.
Yeah.
Think about this one.
His record's quite interesting, like compared to when he plays against the big six to the others. Like he's racking up goals against the other teams, but struggling in these kind of games.
Which is one of the. I don't want to make it about Erling Haaland is having a bad time sort of scenario, because he's a consequence of how they're playing at times. But we talked about this. He's not, it's all very well him getting the goals via Wolves and all these things. But yeah, they have to utilise him in these bigger games better. Think about the Man United game at Old Trafford, which was a huge game, and how frustrated he was. And then think about the Tottenham game, which was a huge game because Arsenal, their main title rivals, had lost the day before. And yet, I don't think I've seen a player who's scored so many times in his first year at a big club, at elite level football, look as frustrated as he has in some of those bigger games. Yeah. And that being the weekend. They just haven't found a way in these kind of matches to use his strengths. And you saw him again in that Tottenham game in the first half, coming deep to get some touches and stuff. It's frustrating for him.
The amazing thing for me is it's not rocket science to get the best out of Haaland. He's big, he's physical, he'll run over defenders, he's quick. Get the ball wide, as you were saying, Craig, and cross it, play the ball early, let him, and you've seen him just run over the top of centre-backs during the course of this season. But against Spurs, and this is symptomatic, and which is why that graphic doesn't tell a story. Certainly doesn't tell Haaland's story. If you don't play to those most basic strengths, if the ball somehow keeps getting to your midfield and you aren't moving it on quickly enough, then there is nothing Haaland can do about that, other than, as we saw a few weeks, drop deep to get on the ball, and then Pep Guardiola criticised him for it and told him stay higher up the park. But he's staying higher up the park and you're not playing to those strengths. So it's really frustrating and bemusing that this City side with this quality can't or isn't doing just some of the basics in playing to Haaland's strengths.
This is quite something. I'm told history is in the making in today's show. Record has been broken. Never has Frank Leboeuf been silent for 20 minutes in his adult life. This is quite extraordinary. Thank you very much, Frank.
We're going to pay for that now.
Frank Leboeuf, what would you like to add?
Too much information, in 20 minutes for me, and I got confused about all those informations. But really, I just want to rebound on the Haaland conversation that you're having right now, where targeting and criticizing Haaland right now is like criticizing a Formula One driver who has a car with no engines, with the tires completely flat, and nobody to sort out the problems. And that's what I feel, is the result of something, as maybe I think as Craig mentioned. If you don't serve him, he will never score a goal. Like any strikers, he's not the type of guy who's going to create something on his own and score a goal on his own. Getting the ball like for his own 30 yards and go forward and score goals. So that's the thing that I see. But something that I want to point. When we talk about Manchester City, we talk about Liverpool, we talk about Chelsea, with the amount of fantastic players that you can find in those squads, you have so many players comparing with last season who are not at their levels. And I don't have the answer why. Is it because of the World Cup? Or is it because, I don't know, something is going wrong in the football world? But you have so many players that you can name. You were naming Diaz and maybe De Bruyne, maybe Gundogan. But at Liverpool, you can name so many others. And at Chelsea, the same. Why those players are not performing like a year ago? That's very strange to me, and I don't have the answer, but maybe because of that World Cup being in the middle of the Premier League, you have that sorts of performances from those players, and it's why maybe Arsenal is getting better because of the freshness. The players are young and they can maybe respond in a better way, but those three teams, they're only the shadow of themselves.